These are the cheapest cars you can buy that still look and drive like supercars. Well, you might not get the insane top speeds of a supercar, but each of these manual rear-wheel drive monsters is a pocket-sized alternative to your favorite poster car. I guess they're like the Pepsi of the exotic car world, a bit cheaper and almost as good. And the farther we go down the list, the cheaper they'll be. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. This is the most expensive car on our list, and it's not even the fastest. But it's the car I would pick for my dream affordable garage anyway, because the Lotus Elise is a true driver's machine at heart. The second generation was sold from 2001 to 2010 and offered with a few spicy drivetrain options. The top spec cars have a 1.8-liter supercharged 4-cylinder Toyota's 2ZZ GE. It can rev to 8,000 RPM and makes over 200 horsepower. Now that may not sound like the high adrenaline power numbers you'll get out of a modern Lotus, but there's a reason that the Elise served as a foundation for legends like the Tesla Roadster and Hennessy Venom. The 6-speed manual transmission, simple interior, and 2,000-pound curb weight makes it one of the most analog driving experiences you'll ever find. In fact, Car and Driver magazine described it as one of the best driving cars on the planet. A few years ago, these cars traded hands at around $25,000, but the stunning driving experience has resulted in them achieving somewhat of a legendary collector car status. Nowadays, you're lucky to pick them up for around $35,000. Still cheaper than the average new car, but not as affordable as our next option. Like the Lotus, the Xenos E10 is a rear-wheel drive open-top enthusiast car, but unlike the Elise, the E10 makes a bit more power from its 2.3-liter turbocharged EcoBoost 4-cylinder. That's 350 horses in the E10R. The more affordable E10 and E10S are closer to the Elise with their downgraded 2-liter engines. Still, Xenos claimed 0 to 60 in less than 5 seconds and a top speed over 130 miles per hour for even the base model. It came with the type of styling you could confuse for a miniature McLaren Elva and weighed less than 2,000 pounds. I'm using past tense here because the company sadly went extinct in 2017, but their E10 continues to tread the line between track and street on the used market. Although these were briefly offered in the United States and I've actually seen one here myself, they're much more commonly sold in their home country of Britain. From the few sales I could find, they appear to be worth 15 to 20,000 pounds on the low end. But if that's too hardcore for your daily commute, you might prefer the Porsche 968 instead. Another one of my personal favorites, the 968 is often overlooked by Porsche connoisseurs because it's water-cooled and, well, often overshadowed by its more expensive sibling, the 993 911. But that's great news for someone looking to pick up a cheaper alternative. And with 236 horsepower from a naturally aspirated 4-cylinder transaxle, the 968 definitely has more to offer than quirky pop-ups. It was originally intended as a next-generation 944, but Porsche made so many changes to the car that they just gave it a whole new name. Since it lasted for only 4 model years before it was replaced by the mid-engine Boxster, the 968 is practically unheard of, yet it still costs less than $20,000. Pack your mullet because this next pick will push the budget under 10 grand. The C4 might just be the most unloved Corvette generation of all time. It's too old to be considered new, but too new to be considered a classic. The 1984 to 1996 generation of Vette was offered with a Ferrari-killing 5.7-liter V8, making up to 400 horsepower in the ZR1. But even the cheaper L83 motor produced about 200. A few years ago, the C4 might have been the cheapest car on this list. I still remember a time when you could buy them for the loose change I found beneath your mom's bed. But nowadays, as the C4 creeps closer to the cusp of collectability, prices have risen to around $8,000 to $12,000. Considering the raw power of American muscle, it might be worth the investment. If Corvettes are too pedestrian, maybe the BMW Z4 will scratch your supercar itch. This 6-cylinder two-door made over 200 horsepower and was produced from 2003 to 2008. BMW intended this car to be an alternative to Porsche's Boxster, and it sold incredibly well despite the controversial styling, which in my opinion is actually far better than the modern Beamers. A soft top called the E85 and coupe called the E86 were both available. It's front-engined, rear-wheel driven, and comes with either a 5 or 6-speed manual transmission. It's almost like a Miata, but without all the stigma that comes with a Miata. A Miata for serious people. Since BMW made so many of them, just 6 or 7 grand will get you into the driver's seat. Quite an impressive discount from the 6 or 7 figures that a Z8 would cost. The Audi TT. The only car on this list without rear-wheel drive, the TT was instead offered with Audi's Quattro 4-wheel drive system, which was primarily front-wheel drive, but kicked some power to the rear wheels if it detected any slip up front. Some modifications do exist that allow you to lock it permanently into 4-wheel drive mode, and those are allegedly pretty affordable. Either way, early models were offered with a 1.8-liter Turbo 4, and a 3.2-liter V6 was added later on. This car has been described as a fun-sized alternative to Audi's R8. At 247 horsepower, it won't pack nearly the same punch as its older brother, but at 1/10 the price, it's quite a tempting offer nonetheless. You get the same platform as the Audi A3, a somewhat luxurious interior for the time, and the type of exterior styling that will attract more women than a Lamborghini. Yes, I'm dead serious about that last one. It's possible to find these for under 6 grand if you're lucky. This one's a bit of a wild card. The Lotus 7 replica. About a dozen different brands will sell their own flavor of lightweight, open-top, soapbox-styled performance. The original Lotus 7 was sold as a kit car from Colin Chapman himself. They were small, aluminum-paneled, and struggled to achieve high speeds, thanks to the lift created by those large wheel covers. The Lotus 7 kits that are sold in modern times vary in their level of refinement. The most famous is probably the Caterham 7. Their top-spec racer comes with a 2-liter supercharged Ford Duratec, making 310 horsepower. You can assemble it yourself, or pay extra for a turnkey model. Used Caterhams sell for a pricey sum of about $30,000 to $40,000. But fear not, because there are plenty of other low-cost Lotus 7 alternatives. One such example: low cost. Low cost isn't exactly a brand. It's more of a cult philosophy, a movement that strives to assemble Lotus 7 replicas for the lowest cost possible. It was largely inspired by a DIY book claiming you could build your own sports car for as little as 250 pounds. Converting to US dollars and adjusting for inflation still puts that sum below 1,000. Obviously, the actual price will differ from project to project, but the general idea is to get as inventive as possible, using motorcycle parts and junkyards to assemble your affordable masterpiece. I might make a full video about low-cost builds in the future, so hit the subscribe button if you're interested. Thanks for watching.